How do you establish clear relationships between ideas? In this lesson, you will learn how to establish clear relationships between ideas by analyzing different quotations. Let's remember that the prompt we are working with is, after reading Up from Slavery, Chapter 1, write a multiple paragraph essay that asserts how Washington's use of rhetoric shows his perception and positioning of audience. Support your position with evidence while considering a counterclaim. Let's also remember that in the writing process, you begin by reading closely and analyzing your text, and then you generate and plan your essay, you draft and revise it, and then edit and publish. We are now in the drafting and revising stage. Let's also remember the different pieces or elements of a body paragraph. So basically the parts that are necessary for your claim to be really clearly tied to the evidence. So the first thing is to have a topic sentence. That is what tells your reader what that paragraph is going to be about. It's sort of a heads up about what you're going to go into in that paragraph. Second thing is context. Context is crucial in order for your reader to understand where your quotation happened in the text, what was happening as the quotation came along, such that your reader can make sense of it. 3, it's important to have your evidence or your quotation. And then 4, you need a transition, which is going to be a sort of a link between your evidence and your claim. You can also think of this as the explanation of your claim. This is really the most important piece of your body paragraph, because this is where you're explaining your evidence and you're linking it back to your claim. And then a conclusion sentence. So step 1, review claim and evidence and set up evidence in paragraph. Step 2, ask yourself, why is this evidence important? How does it relate to my claim? Step 3, write a transition sentence explaining the relationship between the evidence and the claim. Step 1, reviewing the claim and evidence and then setting up the evidence in a paragraph. So first we'll take a look at my outline with my claim and evidence, remembering that my claim is that Washington's use of rhetoric shows that he sees his audience as divided racially and he positions them together against slavery. I'm looking at my evidence, the quotation that showed that the black people were being really good to their former masters. The quotation with the special fault and unfortunate victim, which was showing that the white people, the blame didn't really rest on them. And then the shift from the I to the we. So those are my pieces of evidence, and that's my claim. So what I'm going to do is just zoom in on one piece of evidence and think about how that relates back to my claim, because that's really what's crucial here. So as I'm looking at this quotation here about the former slaves treating their former masters really well, I'm going to start setting up that quotation. This is where we're doing the context, a topic sentence and then the context, in order for my reader to understand the point of my essay in general, right? So I'll begin with a topic sentence like this. Washington's use of rhetoric shows that he perceives his black audience as needing reassurance of their dignity and power. So there's my topic sentence. That's going to tell my reader what the whole paragraph is going to be about. The next step then is to set up the quotation, to give context. So this is where you're really just summarizing what was happening in the text before the quotation, because if I just jumped into the quotation, nothing that colored people possess is too good for the son of old Mars Tom, my reader would have no idea what that evidence meant or how it related to anything. So the context begins with, when Washington is writing about former slaves' attitudes towards their former masters, he describes the former slaves' treatment of the son of their former master. So I've neatly just summarized what's going on right before and even a little during the quotation. So then I begin my quote with, he writes, "Nothing the colored people possess is too good for the son of old Mars Tom." Okay, so now I've got my body paragraph all set up, and it's time to move on to step 2, the real meat of this paragraph. So now you're asking yourself, why is this evidence important? How does it relate to my claim? So this is what I've just written down, and now I'm going to go ahead and try to answer that question. I'm just going to jot it down. And you know, it's important because it's showing that black people gave a lot. It shows that they care. It shows that they are good to their former masters. It shows that they are kind and giving people, more than I would expect if I was in contact with somebody who had kept me as a slave. Much more so. Step 3. Write a transition sentence explaining the relationship between the evidence and the claim. So there is my setup of the paragraph. Here's the brainstorm I just jotted down. And now I'm going to try to turn that into a tidier transition. You can always begin with a phrase like, "this quote shows," or "this quotation is important," to get you going. So here I go. This quotation shows how giving the black people were. They were in a position to help out the poor drunk white man and had the goodness to do it. So I put it all together in this paragraph. Washington's use of rhetoric shows that he perceives his black audience as needing reassurance of their dignity and power. When Washington is writing about former slaves' attitudes towards their former masters, he describes the former slaves' treatment of the son of their former master. He writes, "Nothing the colored people possess is too good for the son of old Mars Tom." This quotation shows how giving the black people were. They were in a position to help out the poor drunk white man and had the goodness to do it. So you can see how this fit into the whole process. There was my outline. Here's what I would do with each piece of the outline. So the exact same process that I just walked you through, but I would do it for each piece of evidence. I would start off with my topic sentence. I would set up the context, give the quotation. I would brainstorm why that quotation is important, how it links back to my claim, and then I would go ahead and write the explanation or the linking sentence between the piece of evidence back to the claim for each paragraph. So in the writing process, you see then how we're in the drafting and revising stage. We did this by reviewing the claim and evidence, setting up the evidence in a paragraph. Then we asked ourselves, why is this evidence important and how does it relate to my claim? And then the third step was to write a transition sentence explaining the relationship between the evidence and the claim. In this lesson, you have learned how to establish clear relationships between ideas by analyzing different quotations.